The Vikings feared no man except the ones they could never see. In the frozen north, savage blizzards hid warriors who moved like ghosts, struck like predators, and vanished like breath in the cold. They weren't an army, they were a force of nature. These were the ice wolves. The Arctic doesn't forgive weakness. It breaks it. That's where the ice wolves were born, among cliffs of ice, endless storms, and nights colder than forged steel. While empires rose and fell in the south, these people learned to read the wind, listen to the ice, and survive where others would freeze in hours. Their world was a land of no mercy, and it made them merciless in return. They were masters of the unforgiving landscape, a place of haunting beauty and sudden death. So who were these ghost-like figures? They were hunters and trackers from the Sámi and other indigenous peoples of the far north. They were reindeer herders, masters of the frozen tundra, whose entire lives were a lesson in survival. They weren't conquerors seeking gold or glory. They fought for a simple, brutal reason. Because heavily armed Vikings invaded their ancestral homeland, threatening their families and their way of life. They were the ultimate underdogs, pushed to the edge, and in that moment, they turned into the apex predators of the north. The first clash was a lesson in humility for the invaders. The Vikings arrived arrogant and confident, iron-plated, broad-shouldered, and loud. They brought with them the sounds of conquest, the clash of steel and the roar of war horns. But their heavy armor became a frozen prison when the temperature plummeted. Their strength meant nothing when the biting cold ate at their fingers and toes. And their fires, their only source of warmth, were extinguished by an enemy they couldn't even see. The ice wolves didn't meet them on an open field. They met them in the heart of the storm. Their tactics were brutal and efficient. The ice wolves hunted Vikings the way a wolf pack hunts a moose. They didn't charge head-on. They would surround their prey, using the terrain and the weather as their greatest allies. They would confuse them, disorient them, striking the weakest points of the formation in total silence, and then melting back into the whiteout. There were no battle horns, no war cries. The only sound was the howling of the wind, punctuated by the silent, deadly thrust of a spear from a snowbank or the thud of an arrow finding its mark. For the Vikings, it was like fighting phantoms. Legend tells of a Viking warband, flush with victory after raiding a village, that marched confidently into an approaching blizzard, tracking what they thought were fleeing survivors. They never came back. Not a single man. When the storm finally cleared days later, explorers found only their frozen shields, half buried in the deep snow. Each one was marked with a single, deliberate scratch. The claw mark of a wolf. The message was clear. This land belonged to the storm, and the storm had teeth. The Vikings wrote sagas about countless foe kings, giants, and rival clans. But they spoke in hushed tones about the one enemy the cold itself seemed to defend. The ice wolves never sought glory or fame. They didn't build monuments or carve their names into stone. All they wanted was to protect their home. Yet, in doing so, they earned a different kind of immortality, a legend whispered on the winter wind. Some warriors conquered lands. These warriors conquered the impossible. Thanks for watching. Stay curious.